Okay, Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. In the contemplation of the Yoga Sutras, this second sutra, I just want to go a little bit further into this before we get into the beyond the 11th sutra, because then it gets into things like different forms of samadhi and all that later on. So before we do all that, there's just some basic things that we want to cover. When we think about the mind, the chitta vritti, yogas chitta vritti nirodha, second sutra. So some more understanding of the nature of the mind we'll go into just for a few minutes. The first point is that, or the first stage of any sadhaka, is a realization that the mind is very fickle. Fickle meaning it is kshipta, K-S-H-I-P-T-A, that is the Sanskrit word. It is moving, changing, going from jumping like a monkey. We realize that, monkey mind. Then as we start sadhana, different mantras, different puja, archana, yogic process, the observance of certain niyams, observance of certain patterns that we have set to do sadhana, then we begin to realize how much the mind is infatuated with the world. This is the second thing that is realized. That is called mugdha, M-U-G-D-H-A, mugdha. Mugdha means the infatuation. Infatuation in the sense the attractions and all. See, if Sachin is going to sit for meditation for, let's say, 30 minutes, meditation, satsang, bhajan, bhakti, let's just say for 30 minutes. And in that time, the mind goes in so many other places. It wants to do so many other things. So one of the benefits of doing sadhana as we're doing daily, we begin to realize how much desire is within the mind to do so many things. So many thoughts are there. And it is so much absorbed in the worldly activity, in the pursuit of the senses. So that realization comes, from the kshipta state, the fickle realization, into the mugdha state. We see this is what is going on. Then as we continue this, our concentration process, attention process, further, we begin to see that it is that we get distracted. That is called vikshipta. Vikshipta is a distraction. I've decided I want to sit for 30 minutes satsang, bhajan, but my mind is getting distracted by something. Maybe the cell phone or some text message or this or that. 100 distractions are there. Okay, wait a minute. You realize that thing? And we move from those three, that fickleness and infatuation and distraction, into the state of ekagrata. Ekagra, the mind becomes single-pointed, becomes very much absorbed slowly within the object of one's devotion. So if somebody is worshipping Sri Ganesha, or they're worshipping Krishna or Jesus or some of the gurus, whoever is being worshipped, there is an absorption of the mind into a single-pointed state. So in yoga, this is one of the big goals, to achieve a single-pointed state, even for short periods of time. Now, if it is done just through breathing and some Vedantic mantras, there's no real concept of God in that as something separate. So that is called nirbij sadhana. The sabij sadhana is when you consider that there is God beyond you, then that becomes sabij sadhana, and that is a different way to evolve further. So single pointedness is for some periods of time, but now that doesn't mean that one just remains single pointed and does nothing else. Some people have done that also, tried to do that. But that is not necessary, nor is that advisable in my perspective at least. You can have states of being single-pointed, but when we come out of that, there is a energetic flow that is used in the sansara, in life, that is without bondage. So when you've taken energy and concentrated it, now it can be used in a very beautiful way, as we have been saying. So that is ekagrata. And then if the ekagrata does continue further, naturally, not by force or anything, eventually the mind gets into a state of nirodha. That's the yoga chitta vritti nirodha means what? That its usual function stops. But that doesn't mean that it's dead or gone. That's not the point. Its usual function stops and the transcendental function begins. जिसको अलौकिक भाव, अलौकिक स्थिति मन की हो जाती है. Mind begins to fall into the Atmic consciousness. And that's where all the chakras open up and all the different nadis and all the different planets and other so many metaphysical phenomena begin to be seen in the higher stages, all the way up to the different realms in the divine worlds, and then beyond that all the way into the infinite consciousness and beyond. So that is where the human mind is still present. But that's the samadhi. That's the whole point. That the samadhi is a state of this internal awakening. It is called nirvikalpa samadhi. Nirvikalpa means that there is no other thought other than the paramatma only. And that is a state of samadhi where eventually you are sitting in some posture, maybe even lying down or maybe sitting up or however, and is outside the body consciousness, physical body and the subtle body and the causal body. And that is where that nirodha state comes. So the cessation of all mind stuff, technically it is called asampragnat samadhi. Asampragnat samadhi is just the cessation. Sampragnat samadhi, you actually see God in that. So that depends on your intention. It's very beautiful. There are definitely greater and greater stages of inner development. But from where we are, our goal at this stage, mine and yours and everybody else's that is in our journey, is to bring about a state of true balance in all aspects. We don't want to be torn by the different flights of the mind. That's the thing, So and then eventually the sadhana deepens. Sadhana deepens further. और वो भगवान के साथ इसमें बहुत एक प्रकार का एक संबंध. It's a relationship that is established with the Ishta Devata. जो हमारे जो कोई भी इष्ट देव है उनके साथ relationship का संबंध होता है. And that is very important. Ishta Devata is the one form of God that you are deeply attracted to. And उनके मंत्र होते हैं, शास्त्र होते हैं, उनके गुरु भी, the different guru paramparas are there to help connect with that Ishta Devata. तो ऐसी सब अद्भुत बात है. We have, as we're, again, remember today, the key thing to keep in mind, recognize the fickleness of the mind, the way the mind gets attracted and infatuated, how it gets distracted also. Distraction implies you're trying to concentrate on something. Otherwise, there's no distraction. When we want to do something, when we are putting our mind attention somewhere, then the distractions come. So we are aware of what is the nature of distraction. And then that eventually stabilizes and it goes into ekagrata, the single point, which is very beautiful. That happens if you get into absorb bhajan kirtan for 15 minutes, 20 minutes. People who do bhajan kirtan, they get lost in that for some time. But then eventually you have to come out of that. You just cannot be in that. Some people do for 24 hours. Some people do for longer than that. But eventually you change into something else, other activity. So any sadhana, even if it is single pointed, it requires change. Just as we want change in the material world, we cannot eat the same food all the time or go to the same places all the time. It doesn't work that way. Even in the spiritual sadhana, same thing is true. We change the sadhanas again and again and again and keep revolving around them. So many sages have described this, and that has to be done. We can recognize. So when we do that, our energy remains fresh, mind remains more enlightened, more awakened. It is not simply the dulling of the mind. And that can happen too. If you start doing the same sadhana again, eventually you get sick of the sadhana. You say, what the heck am I doing here? This is just all some mental game. Or isme se bahut, you get tired and you say, this is just useless. People never get to a point in sadhana where you start feeling this is useless. ऐसा होना नहीं चाहिए. That is a massive problem. And also, what happens with people who are following patterns? When they're following any pattern, eventually a point comes in. What is the point? It's the same thing again and again. Again, that dullness shows up. It's the same thing again. The same thing. What's new in this? Like, for example, when we do the Om Ganganapate Namaha mantra, somebody could say, well, we're doing it every single day. What's new in that? That's because it is being done mechanically, as opposed to bringing about something new about Sri Ganesha, something new about Adhyatma within the mind, something new about the Gurus, and then doing the sadhana for some period of. So there's a freshness. The freshness like of a beautiful, if you have rose flower, beautiful flowers, जो एकदम fresh cut flower होते हैं, उसका कितना एक महिमा है. You feel like, oh, this is so awesome, Even if you have it every day, but when you have the fresh flower, you feel, if for that few moments you feel beautiful. Then you may have different flowers also. It's like that. But if you have the old flower, and then the scent is gone, everything is gone, then it's just, you go, okay, take it, where's the flesh? So the freshness of the spiritual scent, we never want to extinguish that. This is a massive problem on the spiritual path. इसमें साधु संतों को भी ये प्रॉब्लम होता है, गृहस्थ को भी प्रॉब्लम होता है, किसी को भी प्रॉब्लम होता है, because it becomes repetitive. You go into a repetitive pattern, it becomes old. Then you get tired of it, then you leave it all together and you try to find something new in the sansar again. So that, and then even the people who are just going in the sansar, they're just wanting to expand. They're in those patterns, they get tired of them anyway, they keep changing them. So mind, nature of mind, it does require change, but the change should be occurring in a way that enlivens the mind, not puts the mind in a mechanical, artificial state. ये बहुत significant बात है. Very, very important point. Otherwise the freshness would not happen, right? So these are things just to keep in mind. All right, so let's continue forward. Now we'll skip all these for now, and then we'll get to the remainder ones as we move ahead. So again, the notion that we are together. I was thinking about this yesterday. Just came across some different people yesterday, and again, because of the daily satsang and our try to maintain the consciousness, we say that paramatma is present everywhere. Vasudeva kutumbakam. We are together. Do we really have this feeling? You see somebody who is illiterate. You see somebody who is from different race, different culture, different physical size. Their accent is different. Do we really have this feeling that Vasudeva Kutumbakam? Really? Not just as an idea. Oh, Sachin can talk about it, and others can say, "Bahut badi baat hai, bahut badhiya pravachan ho gaya. This happened very nice. Katha varta was good," or this, this saint is very great. People are so interested in all those praises. Sab theek hai. There's nothing wrong with all that, but we want to go beyond all that thing. Those things are too small. That has absolutely no meaning, all those praises and all that. The reality is the Vasudeva Kutumbakam. Do we really have that? Genuinely. You see, that genuine thing. And I have to ask myself this thing. Every day, every moment. I have to ask every moment, is it really there within me? Or is it just an idea that my mind is fascinated? Oh, it sounds like a great idea. मन में क्या होता है, उसमें fascination हो जाता है. You listen to these ideas, oh, how nice that would be. Mind turns it into a fascinated idea, and then it just leaves it like that. It doesn't really go into that. So even if we are in this state for even 10 minutes of Vasudeva Kutumbakam, it's not a question of time. If we're in that, even if we get a glimpse of this, it is the most extraordinary evolution from inside. This is one of the most significant ideas or developments in the history of the world, Vasudeva Kutumbakam. And without this, if this is not there, there is no spirituality or humanity or anything. It is nothing but an ego process, divisive. And that is why humanity suffers again and again and again, simply because this is not realized. Even if 1,000 people realized this and lived in that space, they would impact hundreds of thousands. It's difficult for even one person to realize this. You see, why is it so difficult? Because our mind is so trapped by all the conditioning. Itna entrapment hai man mein, to ye conditioning, we are aware of the conditioning, and we say, that's not me. I am resonating with this Vasudeva Kutumbakam. Rather than turning it into an idea. It's not just an idea. Idea may be the beginning. But the reality is the actual thing. So with those thoughts, let's continue forward. So again, as we're contemplating on this beautiful verse, Brahmanandam Paramasukadam Kevalam Gnanamurtim Dvandatitam Gagana Sadrusham Tattvamasyadi Laksham Ekam Nityam Vimanavachanam Sarvadi Sakshi Bhutam Bhavatitam Trigunarahitam Sadgurum Tam namami. We looked at Triguna Rahitam just briefly yesterday. Beyond the three gunas, we had some discussion about it. Again, the word Satguru. Satguru is not by clothes or affiliations and all this thing. This is all there as a sadhana, as a certain way of expressing. That's all. True Sadgurus is this state. And that's the only definition of real Sadguru. Otherwise, there are so many of these external garbs that people get stuck in. No. Sadguru is one who is, see, the word is Satguru. And the word Guru is from darkness to light. So the individual who is in that transformative process, or who has realized the enlightened state, so the body and the mind are just emitting that light, that divine light. जो परमात्मा का जो प्रकाश है, परमात्मा स्वयं है, उनके शरीर में रहकर वो सब क्रिया होती है. They don't have any personalized, individualized ego, जिसको देहातीत स्थिति कहते हैं. इसका बहुत वर्णन है. We won't go into all that right now. But simple language is that it is a way of, it is a Sadguru who is living beyond the limitations of the body and the mind. He's gone beyond it. And as such an individual, we recognize them. There have been so many in the history. Even today they're there. And most importantly, by bowing down to that state, this word namami doesn't mean we're keeping it at a distance. Oh, Sadguru is here, great saints are here, I'm here. Wrong. That's the biggest mistake. Where they are, that's where I am also. That's called Atmanishta. That is called Brahmanishta. And without that, that separation keeps remaining. We're interested in worshipping the Sadgurus and great sages in the history of the India. How many are interested in saying that is me? If you do that, who can touch you? Impossible. All that is required to say, I am this state, Brahmanandam Paramusukam. That's me, not this limitation. And when we come to that, then we take all the images of the beautiful, great sages, and whatever the beautiful enlightenment we see in them, he said, that's me. Keep resonating. That's me. That's me. That's me. That's me. That's the whole idea of the Soham mantra. Aham Sah Soham. What is the point of that? That is the mantra. It's a mantra, of course. But so what we are trying to worship, that is inside of me. और इसमें एक भी बात ऐसी नहीं है that is of in any way binding into the Maya. So this is a very beautiful, extraordinary verse. We'll keep tomorrow. We will start a different angle of this thing. This Brahmanandam. तो इसका a little bit further depth का meaning. We'll go into that next time. Okay. So again, this very important diagram about the Ida Pingla Sushmana Nadi. That the nadis, we don't want the blockages within. So the Dharma, Jnana, Vairagya and Bhakti, the four that are the essence of all the scriptures, these four, when they combine together, they just open everything completely. There cannot be any obstacle left. And as I said to you before, in the life of Sajanand Swami Maharaj, who is known as Sri Swaminarayan, this was his whole mission to bring this out, and he found this actually from the scripture called Vasudeva Mahatma. So that is a very nice scripture, and that has this explanation of these four in a lot of depth. Okay, and again, now this whole thing about humans are searching for this. It is a search for constant joy without break, ananda. Is there such a thing? Yes, definitively there is. But to realize that, number one thing to realize in this, that Sadguru state is me. With that Sadguru state, my energy and all the 12 dimensions. You see this diagram here? This energy diagram? It's got 12 sides. That's the 12 dimensions of each person's life. Energy is harmonized and synced. There's no hyperindulgence or suppression. Energy is not being torn. हमारी जो शक्ति है वो tear नहीं होती in anything we do. And because of that, there is a synchronous flow of energy. And when that happens, and with bhajan, bhakti, sadhana, all the different spiritual processes in place, that will take us to the Atma. Because energy is the bridge into the Atma. And that is the Sadguru state. The Sadguru state or Satpurush state is where all energies are completely intact. And then that intact power becomes a bridge into the effulgent Atma. The effulgent Atma is the light of millions of suns. हमारा जो स्वरूप है original, वो अनंत सूर्य का तेज है उसमें. इसको अक्षर ब्रह्म कहते हैं. Think about this. In Bhagavad Gita, this is described as Nat tad bhasayate suryo na shashanko na pavakah yad gatva na nivartante tad dham paramam mama. ये मेरा धाम है. धाम में भगवान ऐसे कहते हैं इसमें कि ये जो धाम मीनिंग प्लेस वेयर गॉड रिजाइड्स, इन दैट अबोर्ड ऑफ गॉड, उसमें सूर्य चंद्र का प्रकाश भी नहीं जाता. दैट्स हाउ फार इट इज. सूर्य चंद्र इज इनलाइटनिंग दिस मटेरियल वर्ल्ड, और सूर्य भी एक नारायण का ही इनकार्नेशन है. You see, but where the sunlight doesn't reach, there's a divine light, Divya Prakasha. That is called Chidakash. It is called Akshara Brahma. और उसमें भगवान रहते हैं. और अक्षर में भगवान रहते हैं. भगवद गीता में दिखा है, तस्मात् शर्मति तो हम अक्षरादपि चोत्तम अतोस्मि लोके वेदेश प्रतितः पुरुषोत्तमः. That shar is all of the imperishable world. That's what the word shar means. Akshar means imperishable. Akshar or Akshara Brahma, the absolute. Imperishable. और जो imperishable reality है, जिसको हम आत्मा कहते हैं, अक्षर कहते हैं, उसकी अंदर परमात्मा रहते हैं. This is विशिष्टाद्वैत और ब्रह्म विशिष्टाद्वैत. And that paramatma is the essence of the Atma. So it's just like how if you have a sesame seed, the oil within the sesame seed is the essence of the sesame seed. Similarly, we are the Atma, but the essence of the Atma is the Paramatma. जिसको in Gujarati, like Maharaj explained, that is the Atma का तत्व है. You know, that he said the आत्मानु तत्व ये परमात्मा. He said आत्मा परमात्मा का क्या, ऐसे तो एक ही है. But the Atma is the body of God. It's really something amazing, you know. So it's a metaphysical baat. Some other time we'll go into all those things. Fascinating stuff is there. Okay, let's do the Ashtottara Namavali. Today, and we're running, we may have to go just a little bit beyond. I hope you don't mind spending another 15 minutes so we can finish our full sadhana. So here we go.